What's up, everybody? Eagles Giants rivalry week is here, but I don't care about the rivalry this week. We got the great Bryan Cameron join us from Philadelphia Sports Network. We're talking Eagles Giants all morning long. Sit back, train the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live across all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. And especially do us that favor and head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, and drop your comments there. Best place to get interactive with the show. And drop your questions over on the YouTube page, especially now that we've got a special guest this morning. We got the great Bryan Cameron at Bryan Cameron PSN. From the Philadelphia Sports Network, who's doing great stuff over there. Good morning, Bryan, and how you doing today?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling really good. I mean, 11-1, entering rivalry on weekend. Can't really complain at this point.
And of course, we got my man Jason Voorhees sporting a new set of headphones there, eliminating that echo for me. I greatly appreciate that. Good morning, Jason. How you doing today?
What's going on?
All right.
Happy to be here.
So, guys, I want to start with this, Bryan. And, I opened the show with saying it's rivalry week. It's Eagles, it's Giants, and it is rivalry week. The Giants are one of, if not, some people consider the Giants a bigger rivalry than the Cowboys for the Eagles. But I kind of have this different philosophy entering this week. I want the Eagles to take this as just business as usual, a workman's-like approach. Because when I look at it, we could get into the X's and O's in a little bit here about the team, the matchups, and whatnot. But I think on paper, obviously, it's clear that this Eagles team, there's no reason why they should lose this week. The only reason why they would lose this week is if they let the rivalry interfere with their preparation and their mental attitude for this game. Am I onto something here thinking that it just needs to be just a workman's-like approach this week? And if they do that, this should be, no questions asked, an easy game.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think if you actually look at last week, Titans and Eagles, A.J. Brown, the revenge game. It was supposed to be huge, supposed to be emotional. It was business as usual. It was just more, of a focus offensively towards A.J. Brown. But it's huge. What's big about this team is, like, if you want a team that's going to be focused and want a team that's going to take its business as usual week in, week out, it's the 2022 Eagles. Because they don't care who they're facing. The only thing they care about is putting a win in the column. And that's been such a huge testament from Sirianni, from Jalen, from Howie. Like, you're seeing such a huge culture shift from what we're used to seeing. Like, back then it was, Doug would come on talking about, the rivalry about the Cowboys. Sirianni made that mistake on his first season. He's learned from that. And we're seeing it's like, okay, guys, yeah, it's round 13 at this point, if I'm not mistaken. So that focal point and how they're approaching it is, to me, is second to none. And why I expect them to just go in like they're playing the Bucks this week, or they're playing any other team besides the Giants. And it should be a really good game, but at the same time, it's going to be it's going to be one where it's business as usual, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just see that if they keep it that approach, there should be nothing that stops them at this point. Because I mean, you look at it. Hell, I don't know if it was a tactical point by Brian Daboll to say it the other day in the press conference that he's scared of the Eagles. But, when he says that, you kind of think about it. There is no part of the Giants team that is better than the Eagles team. If you go straight down, up and down the lineup, obviously Jalen Hurts is better than Daniel Jones. Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley, obviously you could say that maybe Saquon's a little bit better. The wide receivers aren't better. The tight ends aren't better. The offensive line's not better. Nobody on the defense is really better than the Eagles. So taking that workman approach and making sure that, Nick Sirianni's got these guys focused, I think that's the number one advantage and way for this team to just straight come out and dominate. And look, they're not going to win 35-10 like they did against the Titans next week, but it should be an effective, dominating performance if they keep that approach this week.
Yeah, I definitely completely agree with that. personally, like, and the guys in Flipping the Birds will give me a lot of slack for this, but early on in the season when the Giants were high, I was saying like, hey, like, I think, marking this game on the calendar of it as a game that could be a trap game is ideal. But going throughout the weeks, I mean, wide receivers are injured. Saquon now has a neck injury, and we don't know if he's playing. The defense was very stifling in the beginning of the season, has kind of regressed ever since. So it's not such a worrisome matchup, but at the same time, if the Eagles get in their own way, they will, they'll fumble this game, just like they did against the Commanders. People say, hey, how did the Commanders beat the Eagles? They didn't. The Eagles beat the Eagles in that game. It was the turnovers. It was just the lack of execution on their part. So this team is all about executing. If they execute from beginning to end, there's no way any team in the NFC or AFC can keep up with them at this point, in my opinion, at least.
You mentioned that word trap game right there, and that's actually really interesting because they were able to come out in a game that I thought, when I first looked at the schedule, I thought the Colts, Packers, Titans, that 3-game stretch, that's what I circled as the tough stretch, and we obviously just blew right through that section with no problems, really.
Mm-hmm.
The way you manhandled the Titans last week, and with all that you said, Saquon being banged up, the wide receivers being injured, the defense not playing well right now, basically the Giants kind of peaked, in my opinion, and they're coming back down to earth. Like, I knew the Giants would be better this year. I didn't think they'd be 7-2 or whatever they were at one point, better, but they kind of peaked. They're kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. Is that a recipe for a trap game right there, that the Eagles maybe look past them? They're looking towards that Cowboys game on Christmas Eve. They're trying to just get past this, what's supposed to be easier stretch this week, and I believe it's the Bears next week. Is this an opportunity for a trap game right there?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely, hands down. I mean, at the end of the day, every team is motivated to knock off the top dog on the mountain. And every team coming into Philly, or every team hosting Philly at this point, is going to be looking to give their all against the Eagles. The Giants are no question in that same category, regardless of who's on the field for them. We know, before last week, the Eagles suffered in the run defense, but now they've covered that up. So could it be that the Giants possibly either force the Eagles to turn the ball over, or force another weakness to be exposed, whatever the case may be? But you're going to get the best out of this Giants unit come Sunday, whether it's Saquon back there or not. It's just a matter of fact of understanding, like, hey, every single person on that 53-man roster in New York gets paid to play football. They made it to that level in their career. So they're good at something. It's just a matter of the Eagles being better at everything.
So, it's funny, you bring up that Washington game and how things went. Obviously, it almost to an extent gave the NFL like a blueprint on how to beat the Eagles. Yet nobody has been able to capitalize on that blueprint. And is that partly because of this team and just how well coached they are? Nick Sirianni has these guys. We might give Jonathan Gannett some crap here and there for adjusting mid-game or his schemes, but the work they're putting in during the week, they're seeing these flaws when they happen, and they're making sure that they don't become exposed, week in and week out. Because if you think about it, you give up all those that rushing to Washington, and you go up against a team like the Colts with Jonathan Taylor and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and then Derrick Henry, and all of a sudden, bam, it's like night and day difference. How quickly the league was able to see their weakness, but how quickly they were able to adjust and stop that from being a week-to-week problem.
So my thing with how they adjusted so far, I've been giving Gannon slack all season for the simple fact that I feel like at times he doesn't trust his players. And there's other times where he's trusting every single one of his guys. I feel like ever since they added Sue, they added Joseph, it's more so like, okay, like I'm getting veterans, I'm getting everything I need. Maybe I do need to have, a little bit more trust in this relationship between myself and the players. So you're seeing a lot of adjustments on the fly, and you're seeing them do it in a very precise way. It's kind of like Apple and Android, right? Android comes out with something, great, and then Apple takes years to come out with their version of it because they're perfecting it. We're seeing that with literally how the Eagles are running things. The coaching staff is taking their time with attacking their weaknesses and moving forward with it. Another thing that I really like what's happening this season is I read yesterday that Jalen Hurts apparently is in the building literally every day, and on Tuesdays where it's a coaches only meeting, he's actually dropping in to actually listen to what the coaches are saying and to help game plan against these teams. And he did it against the Giants this week. Like, this is it's the wildest thing. Like I feel like every Eagles fan feels like we're living in the dreamland right now because we went from having a quarterback that didn't want anything to do with the team and the players to a quarterback that literally like from up and down on the roster. Like we interviewed Sean Bradley and he's like, yeah, Jalen, like every single player on this team loves him, and it's just phenomenal to finally see that.
That just like made me smile deep. I know Jason was smiling there too. Like, so, Brian, we've had you on before. No, I have said since day one, from the day they drafted Jalen Hurts, I've been a huge Jalen Hurts fan since his time in Alabama, because I always said intangibles can win over talent. And there's never been a doubt that the intangibles, the leadership, the want, the drive, the chip on the shoulder from Jalen Hurts has been there. And you saying that about him popping in the coaches meet, it just cheers me up. I've been sick and under the weather this week.
Oh
that
man,
just made me feel a little bit better. I
go.
I love it. And I know Jason was smiling because he knew I was jumping for joy inside with that comment, right, Jason?
I mean, how can you not? It's like Brian said, this guy lives, eats, and breathes football. Like that's his. It's ingrained in him, and they always say like good leaders. It's not just leaders what you say; it's always what you do. Leading by example, and he's the perfect example for any kind of player that's coming up in this league that wants to see a guy that commands respect just by how they are, their day-to-day routine, what they do on the football field, how they are with younger players, and he's young himself. Like all of these things, like it's just collectively just shows you why Jalen Hurts was slept on by many people, and not just in the league, in this town, and they're now all eating crow because this guy is the real deal, and it's just lovely. I love it.
Lovely. I love that. Lovely. It's lovely.
Well, think about it this way: like, imagine if Randall Cunningham had these intangibles, had this attitude towards the game. Like we're talking about an Eagles team that would have won championships, or that would have done damage. So you're seeing the prototypical quarterback in Jalen Hurts, but also the right guy to lead a franchise, especially in Philly. Like, listen, we tried Carson Wentz experiment, we tried Nick Foles, we tried Sam Bradford. They all had great arms and great parts of their game, but Jalen has the greatest part of his game is his attitude, and he's mastered majority of the other aspects of his game. And you can add me to that list. I'm eating crow right now because last year I was saying, hey, I want Russell Wilson. When Jalen was drafted, I was like, this is a bad move because you're creating havoc in the quarterback room, but didn't understand that Carson Wentz was already creating that kind of havoc. So to see Jalen just progress, from a guy who was Taysom Hill, like who's gonna be used like just in the run game, to the guy who's actually gonna be the franchise quarterback after this season, it's a sight for sore eyes. It's amazing.
Jalen Hurts is going to get paid a boatload of money this offseason. Like, I don't even want to fathom. Like, we talked earlier this week on the channel about Lamar Jackson, how he bet on himself, and he's not really having quite the season. But the offer that Lamar Jackson, what was it, like $250 million that he turned down? Kind of feel like that might be the bottom baseline of what Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is going to be at this point one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL after this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually had a very spicy debate about that within PSN. The idea, like I was thinking beginning of the season, like if they do extend Jalen, he does a good decent job. You're talking about between the range of 43 to 46 million. At this point, I would not be shocked if they touch that $50 million threshold. And the great thing about having Jalen is it could be Patrick Mahomes. Like I'm not saying like 11 years or 10 years or something like that sort. I'm talking about team friendly. Because Jalen wants to win. He doesn't give a damn about anything else outside of football. And that's crazy to know. Eagles traded for A.J. Brown. They gave him the $100 million contract. They drafted Devontae Smith. They gave him everything he needed. So now I'd expect Jalen to touch that $50 million threshold, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was loopholes in it where it was still giving the team flexibility to make moves where they could extend the CJ, where they can extend the Darius Slay, where they can even try to extend a James Bradbury, something of that sort. So I'm expecting big things from them this offseason.
Well, I think me and Jason, we talked about it on Monday. Whatever Kyler Murray got, which was a big deal, it's got to be at least Kyler Murray money.
It's got to be a little bit, yeah. It has. I was expecting to be a little bit more.
Kyler Murray was like 240 or 247. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, I would definitely expect a little more.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be to that point. So I just had a train of thought. We're sitting here thinking about Jalen Hurts and the money and all that. I totally lost my whole train of thought there on that one there, which is just phenomenal. Because
Well, just to jump in, since you lost your
go
train
for
of
it.
thought, like
I lost it here.
to kind of to Brian's point, thank God we have a GM like Howie Roseman, who, by the way, like everybody's just raving about. And I myself, because I was wrong about Howie, I wanted the guy out, 2 years
Yeah, I think we
ago.
all did.
And I'm at this point, I have to just say, like, dude, this guy is a genius as far as how he's running this team. Does he make some mistakes? I mean, we could look at the guy.
Robert Quinn was a mistake.
Quinn. He's on IR now. But overall, the whole body of work that we've seen from Howie Roseman proves that if there's anybody that can do something to get this done where it's team friendly, it's Howie Roseman. So I have no doubt in my mind, and I agree, Brian. I think Jalen would be the guy that's going to say he's not selfish, so he's going to want to win. Wouldn't surprise me if there are, language put into the contract to make sure that he gets his money, but yet we are still able to field a top tier team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So anyway, the thread I was going to go on was talking about how he wants to win here and he cares about winning here. He wants to be here. I just think it's something I've been talking about all week on social media is that Philadelphia as a whole is in a special place in sports right now. Athletes want to come here. Athletes want to play here. Athletes want to win here. And they see when the Eagles are going good, when the Phillies are going good. Like, are we finally, Brian, having like a change in perspective on what Philly really is? Because everybody wants to be in Philly right now. Maybe not in hockey land, but everybody else in every other sport wants to be in Philly. Hell, I know the Sixers aren't playing well, but James Harden took less money to stay here and help the Sixers win. It's not working out, but there's like a shift in the culture of Philly sports. Every athlete wants to be here right now.
So unfortunately, I grew up a Mets fan. But looking from the out, but I did grow up, watching Allen Iverson completely torch defenses. I did grow up seeing Donovan McNabb do things that not many quarterbacks in this time were doing. From the outside looking in, yeah, you're seeing a huge shift in the culture of Philadelphia, especially with bringing a Trey Turner to Philly, bringing James Bradbury, Hassan Reddick. Like, you see people embracing what it was supposed to be a toxic atmosphere according to the national media. There's no better sports city in the world outside than Philadelphia. Like, even New York. Like, I've written for New York places. I've been to games in New York, and nothing touches a game in the Link. Nothing touches a tailgate in the Link. Nothing touches the camaraderie within the community of Philadelphia fans. Like, it's something that it should be praised, although for some reason it's just it's frowned upon. But there's literally nothing like it, and I love it. Like, I'm dying to take my daughter when she's at the right age to an Eagles game, just so she can embrace like what it is to actually be a fan of a sport. Because I would we took her to a Mets game and it was great, but at the same time it was like it was lacking a little bit of the juice that Philly has.
We'll get back to this Eagles Giants game in a second here, but as a Mets guy, growing up a Mets fan, did you ever come to Philly and go to Philly's Mets game? Because that was that was always one.
I'm not crazy.
That was always one of my favorite things as a Phillies fan growing up, going to the vet and going to a Phillies Mets game, because you knew you were going to get 15,000 Mets fans, showing up to the vet, and it was honestly, for as much bad rap as we get as for Philadelphia sports fans, even as a young teenager, I never felt like unsafe. I thought it was fun camaraderie, sports, bickering back and forth. I always enjoyed it, and I always thought it was something that was, a pretty fun thing to experience.
And that's something I do want to acknowledge, because my first Eagles game was actually 2017 Eagles versus Giants when Jake hit that 61-yard field goal. Wow. And I went with my father-in-law, it was a phenomenal game, who's actually a diehard Giants fan. He wore his Giants stuff, and I can tell you, like, it was fun. Like, he had a good time, and he was like, "Wow, like, this is nothing like what people say it's like." Like, there was nobody bantering, going back and forth, fighting. Yeah, sure, a Giants fan did get kicked out, but if you're an asshole, you're gonna get kicked out. Sorry, should I? Sorry for cursing.
That's
If
the
you're,
least
if
that have ever been said on this show.
okay. But if you're acting out of line, you're acting out of line. Like you're bringing that to yourself. But he had a good time. It's a lot better than people say it is. At the end of the day, like it is. Like if if you're playing a video game and you're trying to find this hidden treasure, going to a sports game in Philly is that hidden treasure. Like there's nothing like it whatsoever.
I love it. It's something I've been, I've traveled the world for work before, and it's something that I have tried. I've tried to be a proponent of. Philadelphia is not throwing snowballs at Santa. It's not throwing batteries at JD Drew. We're so much more than 2 or 3 drunk moments that we get a bad reputation for, and we are such a great city. And it's something that being a Mets fan, and that you are. It's great to hear somebody from another fan base actually acknowledge that as well, because it's something I've been really pushing hard for 20, 30 years now, that it's a pretty damn awesome city for sports.
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get back to the point of the show. We got about 5-10 more minutes of your time this morning. Eagles, Giants. Let's get more into the X's and O's. I mean, I said at the beginning, straight up and down, there's not much that the Giants are better at than the Eagles. And especially if Saquon Barkley plays or doesn't play, if he's not at 100%, offensively speaking, the only thing that worries me would be if Daniel Jones is able to put off another one of those games where he rushes the ball multiple times for 30-yard carries and stuff like that. And it leads me to something that I've been begging for since week 1 to see on the field. And I'd love to know I never wish injury on anybody, but Kazir White going down last week brought the guy I've been waiting to see all year, Nakobe Dean, onto the field, and he instantly ties for the team lead in tackles. I think he played 15 snaps last week. Are we going to see, whether Kazir White plays or not, more Nakobe Dean finally on the field? Because I feel like he's a guy that could kind of, because of his size and his speed, kind of to an extent spy Daniel Jones and make sure Daniel Jones stays in the pocket.
We should see more Nakobe Dean. Now,
should.
Listen, nobody knows Jonathan Gannon outside of Jonathan Gannon. Like I feel like his wife doesn't even know him that well because he's so unpredictable. But ideally, if I'm Gannon, I'm looking at it like, hey, playoffs are coming soon. White has been phenomenal. If he's a little banged up, let me limit his role this weekend. Let me get more out of Nakobe. See what we have in Nakobe. I mean, the idea of Gannon being here next year is very, very slim, but still, like let's see what we have in Nakobe going forward, and he could possibly be an asset. Now, as far as spying against Daniel Jones, I think that should happen because we saw a 4th down play where Ryan Tannehill had nothing but open field and converted. Like those things should not be happening, no matter what. Especially when you have versatile linebackers like a Kaiser White or Nakobe Dean on your roster. Like these guys should be in there for that specific reason. And if Daniel Jones breaks off another 70-yard run and falls flat on his face, I'm still gonna be pissed off because it happened.
It's probably one of my least favorite memories of all time. It's just something that shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure why Jonathan Gannon hasn't used Nakobe Dean to this point. I mean, especially considering how we have struggled at times stopping the run. And you see, obviously, Nakobe Dean he could be an asset in the run defense. I'm not sure why we haven't seen him much on the field.
One word.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
He's stubborn.
Stubborn, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I completely agree with that.
So will then this be the game that the number one key is, whatever Jonathan Gannon's game plan is? Because obviously the Giants defense won't be able to stop the Eagles offense. And we shouldn't have a problem stopping their offense, but we've seen those moments before in Jonathan Gannon's schemes where they just have a letdown game and give up yards to Washington. You look at Washington. That game should never have happened the way it played out. Is that the number one key to the game, how Jonathan Gannon's got the defense prepared?
I think he learned his lesson. I think he learned his lesson from the Commanders game as well from the Colts game. Like you can't be giving teams that are not supposed to beat you options to beat you. Like you got to treat every single team as the same as just how the offense has been treating every single team. Treat every single team as an equal and do your thing. You can't give anybody space in this prevent defense. Attack them. You have Darius Slay. You have a great defensive line. You have great players on defense. Use them to their full capability. It's to me every week is dependent on Gannon because you don't know what side of him you're gonna get. What kind of defensive scheme or anything of that sort. But I think adding Marcus Brady, that's the name, Marcus Brady from the Colts, To be, that guy that tells them, hey, like this is how an offense would attack your defense, has been detrimental to Gannon's growth over the last couple of weeks.
The one other thing that I keep saying that it is a rivalry game, and it's a big rivalry game for the Giants as well. The one thing I keep saying is that be workmanlike. Just take it as another day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like Brian Daboll is going to be having the same career trajectory of Nick Sirianni. I mean, a good first season, maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't. But he is that rock solid coach. I mean, I don't know about you, but he was one of the guys that I wanted in Eagles before Nick Sirianni was hired.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Nick Sirianni has turned out to be a phenomenal coach so far, but Brian Daboll is a rock.
Absolutely.
And he does not let his guys get too high. He doesn't let his guys get too low. Oh, like I said, 7-4-1, whatever their record is. I mean, who would have thought the Giants would have been at this point of this season? I kind of feel like he's the X factor that could sway this game a little bit because he's a rock solid guy, and he's not going to let this team get over the top or anything like that.
He definitely is the X factor for multiple reasons. I mean, well, he was a mentor to Nick Sirianni. That's huge. Like you're gonna see you probably see a lot of Daboll in Sirianni's game, and then on top of that, he knows Jalen Hurts. He was his coordinator in Alabama, or was it Oklahoma? One of those two.
I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
one of them. Yeah.
He was his coordinator over there, so he knows Jalen Hurts of pass. Sure, this Jalen Hurts has grown a little bit more to be a little bit more swifter with his arm, but at the same time, like Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni is Nick Sirianni. So Daboll, actually that going into the mental aspect of this game could actually have an advantage because he knows both of them very well. But the same applies for Sirianni. If you learn under a guy like him, then you know his every move. It's kind of like facing Frank Reich, if that was gonna happen. But it's key to that. I think he's the biggest X factor because he's gonna, like you said, he'll keep his guys up, he'll keep his guys down. They're gonna stay level headed throughout the game, and they're going to attack the Eagles' weekends at every moment they can. And if a healthy Saquon Barkley is out there, then it's gonna be tough because you're gonna see Saquon in the pass game, you're gonna see Saquon in the run game. Like both of them are very key to this game, and that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about it. It was Alabama. I kind of totally forgot about that. I should have known because, again, like I said, I've been tracking Jalen Hurts' career for such a long period of time. All right, we got to wrap this up with you here. So final thoughts and you don't have to give a specific prediction, but, final thoughts on how this game plays out, and do the Eagles, advance to 12-1 and, lock this playoff spot up here this week?
I think they win. I think it'll be like a 28-13 game. I don't think the Giants score much on them. But kind of like my thing for the season is I feel like the Eagles have been trading the season like a preseason, just gearing up and understanding, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what they can do, what they can't do, and business as usual. If they keep doing that, entering the playoffs, they'll be a very dangerous team. I think we'll definitely be 12-1. And I think it's going to be a big game at either Miles Sanders or even Jalen Hurts running the ball.
So Brian, again, we got Bryan Cameron, Philadelphia Sports Network, Flipping the Birds pod. You guys got lots going on over there, Philadelphia Sports Network. And, you guys are credentialed now with the Eagles. Did I see that? That's a big deal right there. Yeah, I know it's a very tough thing to get, and you guys are now credentialed. So you guys got some great stuff going on over there, right?
Yeah, I lost my hair when we were credentialed.
Yeah.
That's a joke, ball joke. But no, I mean, yeah, we are, we're fighting, at the end of the day. I think we took a lot of things, the big wigs said last season, the internet scouts, things of that sort. Took that very personal. We're attacking as much as we can. We do have a nice machine behind us with Schnaps Media, and Liam's been doing this thing. We're just striving. We have a couple things in the work. We did bring back Chris Infante to the team, so definitely expect to hear a lot from him over the next couple of weeks, and we may have some other things up our sleeve.
Well, you guys are doing great work, and I love following all you guys over there. Liam, from the top right on down, you guys do some great stuff, and I've had probably about a half a dozen of the Philadelphia Sports Network team on this show before, so you guys do some fantastic work, so I appreciate it. Dude, thank you very much for coming on this morning. I greatly appreciate you waking up and coming on and spending 30 minutes with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. You guys are my morning coffee for today, so I'm good. I'm saving a little bit of money on my side, but I appreciate you guys having me on. Whenever you need me, I'm here. Love talking Eagles in the morning.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you very much, Brian.
No problem, guys.
Thanks,
Take care.
Brian.
That was Bryan Cameron, Philadelphia Sports Network. Greatly appreciate his time. We're going to take a quick pause in the action. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. They have 2 great locations, Fishtown and Old City. Check out one of them today and book your appointment. They're rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. Here, check out some of their great work, and we'll be right back. And we're back here, trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Again, if you're just tuning in, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe button on YouTube, follow on all social media platforms, and make sure you hit the subscribe button on that YouTube page, best place to get interactive, or on the Facebook page. You can also drop your comments there. I am Phil Stiefel. We got Jason Voorhees still here. Again, special thank you to Bryan Cameron from Philadelphia Sports Network for jumping in. And Jason, we're going to get into this now on your side of it. Thoughts on what Bryan said. Are you concerned at all about this Giants game, or should it just be business as usual, a workman's-like approach, like I said? And if they do that, there really is no concern that the Eagles win this game.
I mean, I think you're on to something by saying, by bringing that point up. Honestly, I'm not scared. I think, as Bryan said, the only way that the Eagles can lose this game is if they lose themselves. The Eagles are the worst enemy, is what I mean. So
Right.
I don't see the Giants being a team that's going to come out and just take it to the Eagles. And, as far as, manhandling them on the field, both sides of the ball. We talk about trenches a lot. I know you're a big trench guy.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think, and I saw somebody put in the comments, I really have a weird feeling it's going to be a blowout. I know it's a divisional.
Jim says it's going to be a blowout. Mark said it's going to be a bloodbath. We got a lot of people saying that it's going to be a blowout. But as Kyle's saying, it is a division game. And we know Giants-Eagles games are never blowouts. But that's because we face these Giants-Eagles games as rivalry games. They're hyped to play us. We're hyped to play them. But I just feel like it's hard to do. And yes, there's a lot of new, like A.J. Brown's new to the Eagles. James Bradbury's new to the Eagles. Sue and Joseph, new, like literally less than a month new to the Eagles. But there's still enough older veteran guys that have been here a long time. Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Sayamalu, guys that have been here for a long time that know this is – You circle when the schedule comes out. You look, where are the Cowboys and where are the Giants on the schedule, and you circle them because you want to play and beat your division rivals. But I don't know how you even mentally change your approach to a game to not think about the rivalry. But I kind of feel like that's what needs to be done. Forget that it's a Giants. Just look at it as another team on the schedule. And I don't know how you do that, Jason, but I kind of feel like that would be the best coaching approach to this week.
Well, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with your original point, that just treat it like business as usual. Because if you do that and you take care of your own business, you're going to win. Because like I said, the only way I could see the Eagles losing is if they make bad mistakes and they have a lot of penalties again. And also if Saquon, now, is he going to play? I don't.
See, I didn't think he's not.
I didn't even know he was.
Yeah, he's listed as questionable on the ESPN page. So right now they got him listed as questionable. They got Xavier McKinney, their starting safety, out. One of their cornerbacks, McLeod, is questionable. Ricky James, one of their slot wide receivers, is questionable. They're banged up, but so every team is banged up at this point of the season. Like, who was saying that no quarterback's healthy at this point. You know what I mean? No running back is 100% at this point of the season. And they've pounded Saquon a lot this year. I mean, he's got about 100 yards more rushing than Miles Sanders. He's got a little over 1,000 yards rushing. I think like 1,050 approximately to Miles Sanders, like 960. But he's got a massive amount of more carries than Miles Sanders. They are pounding the rock with him, game in and game out. So he's got a lot of wear and tear on him this year already. So, if he's 80%, we should not have a problem stopping him. Honestly,
I
I
mean,
know he's a great running back, but if he's only 80% with the wear and tear already put on him, it shouldn't be an issue.
at the end of the day, you got to look at our defense. As much as we've been highly critical, and rightfully so, of Jonathan Gannon, if you look at our yardage total, we're second in the league in the NFL in defense. Like, you would never know that by the way that our fans act about our defense. But
Us specifically, I mean, we act poorly against them, but you're spot on. Our defense is much better on paper than we give it credit for.
Yeah, and I get it. Second in total yards, 17th against the run, so that's middle of the pack. But dude, our passing defense is number 1 in the NFL, and if I'm looking across the way at who the Giants have behind center, that does not concern me at all. Like, if anything, he's probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL as far as, just passing the ball.
I mean, I just pulled up our team statistics. We're giving up less than 19 points a game. We have scored as an offense 44 touchdowns this year. We have only given up 26. We are 12 games into the season. We've only given up 26 touchdowns. That's like 2 a game. That's insane.
And the turnover differential.
Only 2,100 yards passing. Where's the rushing attack? We've given up 1,400 yards rushing. So we're giving up 117 rushing yards a game. That's still a little questionable. But we're giving up less than 180 passing yards a game. I mean, this defense is, for as bad as we say it is, at the end of the day, they're
doing their job.
They frustrate us certain plays. But at the end of the day, they are doing their job. They lead the league or are second in the league in so many statistical categories. Is it time for us to maybe to give Jonathan Gannon a little leeway? Is that even remotely possible? Am I going to get banned from Twitter for 12 hours for saying that? Like, let's give Jonathan Gannon some leeway?
I mean, you can't get banned. I mean, because you're just bringing up a legitimate point. There's people that are just haters that are going to come out and say, no, Jonathan Gannon sucks, blah, blah, blah. But if at the end of the day, you do have to give him credit for the results. The bottom line, like, listen, I'm not all about analytics and numbers, but the numbers do tell the tale. The Eagles are 11-1 for a reason, because they're number 1 in offense, right? No, number 3 in offense, and they're number 2 in defense. So they're one of the best teams on both sides of the ball. Now, obviously, special teams has been kind of non-existent up until the last couple weeks.
They were a little better last week. Britton Covey looked pretty solid last week.
Yeah, I'll give him credit. But yes, Phil, you do have to say, okay, Jonathan Gannon, he might have his deficiencies, but they're 11-1. So they're doing something right. And I think ultimately, obviously losing CG, I always get it mixed up. CGJ.
Just say his whole name, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I remember when he won, I couldn't say it, but now I love it. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It kind of has a nice flow to it.
It does have a good flow, but I don't know why I always want to say CJG instead of, I don't know, I guess it's initials. But anyway, I think overall, Jonathan Gannon has done a better job this season than he has last year. So if you're looking for a you can look to that.
And something I wanted to bring up, because we talked about that the Washington Commanders had a blueprint. They gave everybody a blueprint on how to beat the Eagles. Run the ball, create turnovers. Obviously, I honestly feel like that if Quez Watkins, and who was the other? There were 2 turnovers late in that game. If one of those turnovers don't happen, we still win that game, and we might be undefeated at this point. But also on the flip side, I think that loss was important because it gave the league a blueprint, but it also gave Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni a blueprint to see what their weaknesses were. And if we don't lose the way we lost to Washington there, Linville Joseph and Ndamukong Suh might not be part of the Eagles right now. We might not have made some slight adjustments. So that being said, I kind of feel like while everyone talks about Washington being the blueprint on how to beat us, it was also the blueprint on what our problems were. And let's give credit to the team, from Howie Roseman making the additions right on down to Jonathan Gannon and the assistant coaches, on how to fix these deficiencies. So I think that the blueprint thing needs to be looked at on both sides.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit overdone the other way. I agree.
You got to get and did all this, but we made the adjustments just as much as they did.
Yeah, and as I said, I always say this. I say this across all sports. Facing a little adversity is the best thing that can happen for a team, because that builds character. That actually is what helps you in the playoffs, because when it does really matter, you need to be able to know how to respond in game and make those adjustments. And the Eagles have shown that propensity. Now, are they going to lose another game? I mean, it's probably evident that they're not going to go 16-1. Yeah. Now they could.
Remember, I don't know where my sheet is. It's somewhere here. I did remember week 1. I said here's the scenario on how they go 15-2. I forget where that piece of paper is.
You have that paper somewhere.
It's somewhere on my desk of 1,000 pieces of paper here. I will find it. But I did say there's a way that they're going to go 15-2. But that still means they're going to lose one more game.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's evident that the Eagles are overall the best team in the league on both sides of the ball. They're the most complete team. They can beat teams any which way, whether it's through the air, on the ground, or with their defense, coming up with defensive touchdowns and kind of taking that part of the game away. But if the Eagles are going to lose again, it's going to be because they lose. It's going to be their fault.
They lose their focus. They
Correct.
lose their concentration. But let's think about it, though. Something that Bryan said there about how Jalen Hurts is in the managers meeting, the coaches meetings. Jalen Hurts is first one in, last one out. He's part of every. I wouldn't be surprised if you hear he shows up into the defensive meeting. If he doesn't show up to the cornerback's private meeting. Jalen Hurts has got his fingerprint all over this team. Is there a scenario where he just personally wills this team, even when the shit hits the fan? Because, again, go back to that Washington game. Even though we were getting dominated in that game, we were a Quez Watkins fumble away from winning that game. So because Jalen Hurts, I joked about it, he's got some of the broadest shoulders in the world because he literally could put all 52 other men on his back and carry them to victory. He's got that mentality. And so is there a scenario where Jalen Hurts just wills this team to win every single week, even when the shit hits the fan?
I mean, he absolutely has it. I mean, he just every week just shows me new things that it's like, wow, this guy's he's a treasure. Yeah. He really is. I mean, and
backing it off a little bit, I was a huge Tim Tebow fan. And I thought he got a bad rap in the NFL because he didn't throw the ball pretty. But if you go back to Tim Tebow's first year when he was the starter of the Broncos, and obviously back to his college days at Florida, look, he didn't play pretty football for a quarterback. But how many times did you see him put the entire team on his back? I remember there was one game against the Jets, when he played for the Broncos, that he was like 3-19 passing. And they made a big comeback, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. He literally had to bowl over like 3 defensive guys to get into the end zone. He just kept shrugging guys off. It was like, in the Replacements movie when the sumo wrestlers running in the touchdown, and he got 9 guys on his back trying to tackle him. That's the way Tim Tebow did it, because he literally helped will his team to victory every single week. Now, Tim Tebow wasn't a good quarterback. He just was a great leader. He had the intangibles. Jalen Hurts has those intangibles, but he's also turned himself into a damn good quarterback as well. So it's like the best of both worlds. You get the great intangibles, the great leader, and now all of a sudden he's taken leaps and bounds and advancements in his quarterback play. He may be the best, the best of both worlds. He might be what the prototypical NFL quarterback should be going forward.
I mean, Bryan did a very good comp that I actually agree with. I think Jalen Hurts does remind me of Randall Cunningham, but he has that extra level that Randall never had. And
yeah,
Randall Cunningham, I mean, because he makes those kind of plays. Like, he's able to escape, but he's also shown that he can throw the ball. And Randall never had problems with his athletic skill, but Randall didn't have the leadership that Jalen Hurts has. And it's just crazy because it's like it's year 3. I mean, we saw Josh Allen. Josh Allen in year 3 is when he took that huge jump. And
remember, you're not allowed to compare Josh Allen. And
I
Jalen
am
Hurts.
now. I don't care. Yeah.
We all wanted to, and we all got bashed for it.
My God.
Now, maybe we were on this. I really think when teams evaluate quarterbacks going forward, because you see so many quarterbacks. I got into a discussion with Jason Sullivan and Josh Gamble, some of my buddies over in Detroit, because somebody put out a poll about should Jared Goff get another chance in Detroit? Like, has he earned the right to be their quarterback next year, or should they go out and draft a quarterback? And I told them, I'm like, look, you don't know if the quarterback with the 3rd pick, because they own the Rams pick, which might be a top 5 pick as well. You don't know who you're getting in the top 5. They could be Zach Wilson. Look at Zach Wilson. Was he number 3 overall pick or number 2, whatever? These guys coming out of college, doesn't matter how much pure talent they have. If they don't have the intangibles, it doesn't mean anything. So I think that more teams are going to start evaluating because they're going to see the success of Jalen Hurts and being like, we need the next Jalen Hurts. And what is Jalen Hurts? He might be an okay quarterback, but if he's got the intangibles and the work ethic, I think teams are going to start putting more emphasis on the work ethic, the leadership skills, the behind the scenes when they interview these guys, how they talk and answer those kind of questions. I think teams are going to start putting more emphasis on that over just the traditional, can he throw a 30-yard back shoulder pass as a 19-year-old kid coming out of college? I think that they're going to look at the other side of things as much, if not more now, because Jalen Hurts is proving that as long as you've got the work ethic, you can get better, but you can't teach a person to lead. He brought up Carson Wentz. Obviously, Carson Wentz was a better, pure, talented thrower of a football, at a young age than Jalen Hurts was. But he had 0 intangibles.
Oh, Carson Wentz. We're still going back to that, and it's just you're right. It's true. It's like he was the guy just 2 short years ago. He was our quarterback, and it's just
this was the week we benched Carson Wentz against the Saints.
Absolutely insane.
This is the week. This is like the come full circle week here. This is his anniversary of becoming a starter with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts. It's kind of crazy to think how far we've come in literally 2 years.
2 years.
It's insane to think how quickly this franchise has been turned around.
I mean, listen, I think you're on to something. I agree. I think the philosophy is going to change, but I still think it's still a quarterback-driven league. I think every team is chasing the next Pat Mahomes. You see it with the way that, the drafts go. Obviously, this past year wasn't good for quarterbacks.
Right.
But, I don't know. I'm not really one of these college analysts, so I don't really know what the crop looks like coming in. But you're right. I think teams are going to be more apt to not necessarily just go and say, well, we're taking a quarterback number 1. Let's do our homework on this a little bit better. And let's, maybe take a guy in the 3rd round that might not be that, name value.
I'm not even just saying wait to the 3rd round. I'm saying if you got Carson, what's his name? CJ Stroud, the guy from Alabama.
Stroud, yeah.
There's 2 or 3 guys that could go in the top 10. But when you interview those 3 guys, which one shows you more of that wants to have his fingerprint on the whole team, kind of attitude,
the leadership.
Which one's willing to put the work in more likely, that do some research into their background more and learn about who they are, the person, more than can they throw the back shoulder, 30-yard fade. That I think that really needs to be part of the evaluation process. Anyway, let's get back to this game specifically. All right, so we got 10 minutes left here, Jason. Give me your theory on how this game plays out and the keys to. I'm assuming you're going to pick an Eagles victory. How they get to that point? How do the Eagles walk away 12-1 on Sunday?
So I'm going to stick to my guns because I did so last week with the Titans, and I kind of was second guessing myself after I made the prediction of 33-17. I just thought that the Eagles were a better team, and I saw. I don't want to call it a blowout, but it was a blowout.
Right.
I'm looking at this game pretty much similar. I know it's I know it's a divisional game, and I get that, but I just think on paper the Eagles are just so much better. Giants receiving core is awful. I mean, awful. Like they don't even have a number 2 wide receiver, let alone a wide receiver 1. I'm gonna say Eagles 35-10.
Wow.
And I think
back 35-10 weeks.
And
I would love to know, has a team ever beaten 2 teams in a row by the exact same score? That would be some interesting information right there to find. Has a team ever beaten 2 straight teams by the exact same
let's
score?
get Kyle to look that up.
Kyle, Google search that one. Statistician, look that one up. Has a team ever won 2 straight weeks by the exact same score?
I think it's going to be 35-10, but I think it's going to be back to the running attack.
Right.
You mentioned Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders has a big game. I think Jalen Hurts has a big game on both sides of the ball. He's going to score a rushing touchdown. He's going to throw for a couple. I think
you're on to something. I think it's going to be more balanced. You know, you're not going to see a 350 rushing yard game with like 100 yards passing, or a 350 yard passing game with 100 yards rushing. You're going to see that balance this week. You're going to see Jalen Hurts use both legs and arm to win this week, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, if I had to pick my player of the game, it'll be Jalen Hurts, and it'll be his 3rd week in a row.
Can he be
NFC Player of the Year of the week?
Yeah, I think that locks up Player of the Month awards right there for him too. I'm going to go a little closer.
That's fine.
Not because of rivalry week, just because I brought it up with Brian, and Brian, you know, I totally forgot about the connection with Jalen Hurts, you know, at Alabama.
Daboll.
With Brian Daboll. Yeah. I'm going 27-17. And I see it being it sounds closer, 10-point game, but I don't think I think the Eagles handle their business pretty well. The one thing I will say, I know everybody's going to be jumping all over the Boston Scott train because he always plays well against the Giants, whatnot. Just a little note to bettors: do not waste your money. If a running back scoring a touchdown, it's Miles Sanders. Will be Boston Scott has not been an effective part of this offense this year. So don't jump the gun just because he's got a great track record against the Giants. Obviously, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, they're your guys if you want rushing touchdowns. Don't waste. I think Boston Scott's like 8-1 to score a touchdown. I just don't buy it, guys. But I see the Eagles taking care of business. The only thing that would concern me is if Saquon Barkley could get going early. Again, another reason why we've taken the ball first now the last 2 weeks. If we win the coin toss, get the ball first, Eagles. Don't defer. I know the analytics say to defer all the time, but take the ball first and get the momentum first and right away. If you go down and score first, you gain the momentum. You give the ball to the Giants first, and for some reason the defense isn't ready because we've seen, Jason, when this defense is at its weakest, it's on the first drive. It's early in the game. You don't want to let somebody like Saquon Barkley get any form of momentum. And if you do, that could snowball the rest of the game. So I need the Eagles to come out early and often. I kind of see this being one of those games where in years past we've kind of fallen behind against the Giants and had to come back. I remember that late December game a few years back in 2019 when it was rainy on it was Sunday or Monday Night Football, and Boston Scott and Greg Ward and Carson Wentz had to lead a big comeback against the Eagles. I see the script being flipped. I see us jumping out to a big lead early, and maybe getting a little light on our laurels there and letting
off the gas
game. Like I could see us being up 24-3 or something like that, and then slowly just playing soft and conservative and letting Giants back in. But I think that, you know, they don't get close enough to do it. Maybe it gets to 24-17. Eagles kick a late field goal to get that two score lead, and then the Giants just can't overcome it. Because if you get the lead, there's no way that you can trust. Like if they have the lead, they can run the clock out with Saquon Barkley. If we get the lead early, there's no way Daniel Jones can lead a comeback against this Eagles. So we need to get the control early. I see them doing it. And I got 27-17 Eagles and 12-1 on the season. Holy crap. Could you imagine Could you have imagined this 13, 14 weeks ago? We'd be sitting here on the cusp of a 12-1 start to the season.
I mean, I think my original prediction was what, 12-5?
It might have been. I can't find my piece of paper. It's somewhere in this office.
And they already have 12 wins, so they're going to shatter my prediction.
Yeah, I had 11.
I was on the higher end. Yeah. It's crazy. I can't believe it. I can't fathom that the Eagles are where they're at. But it's obvious where
no one foresaw. A lot of people like me and you foresaw Jalen Hurts having to jump forward, but no one foresaw. He went from step A. He skipped B, C, and D and went right to E. Like he leapfrogged expectations this year, and no one could foresee that.
And that's exactly why they're where they're at, 12-1. Yeah. I mean, not that they don't have a complete team. They do, but Jalen Hurts is the number one reason because he's the driving force. Obviously, he's in meetings. I mean, what Bryan said just brought me and you are smiling, gushing ear to ear. Like when I hear that kind of stuff.
Schoolgirls,
it is pretty amazing. But no, I give you credit, Phil, because you've been saying that for probably about a month now. Take the ball first, and they finally did it. Like, remember you were saying it, and people were attacking you.
It set the momentum and set the tone early, and that's all I want.
Because sometimes you do got to go against the analytics. I know, even like I said, I'm not a stat guy, but at the end of the day, numbers sometimes do matter.
Kyle's been quiet the last 10 minutes because he's been Google searching this. He cannot find this.
Okay, so this would be
10. It would be
this
the first
would be an
time
NFL
ever.
first.
Yeah.
Maybe I should
might
change
actually go play $1. I wonder what the odds are on 35 to 10 in the final score.
I'll tell you what, man, you're having some great success. Anybody that wants to bet, follow Phil. Follow Phil, man.
Let me just tell you something. With the week I had last week, do not follow me this week.
I'm
probably going to lose every bet I make this week. No. Negative energy. I am going to win everything again this week. Dude, I had a great week last week. Real quick, before we wrap this show up, we got to talk other NFL. I cannot believe. I don't watch Thursday Night Football. I still am 110% against having to pay for a streaming service to watch a football game. So I didn't watch the game last night. But in what world is the Raiders head coach not fired already today that you let Baker Mayfield, that joined the Rams literally Wednesday night, Thursday morning, come out there, not even know the playbook, and beat your ass on Thursday Night Football? Look, I had the Raiders in the Super Bowl. My biggest mistake of all time. I don't know what I was thinking. But Derek Carr should be benched. And who is it? Josh McDaniels, the coach in the Raiders, should be fired instantly. I mean, it's an embarrassment. And when I woke up this morning and I clicked on ESPN to see what the final score of that game was, and I saw that they blew that game, I laughed.
Yeah,
I literally laughed my ass off.
I didn't click on the score first. I clicked on Twitter, and Baker Mayfield was trending.
Yeah.
That was like the number one trending thing. I'm like, why is Baker Mayfield trending? And then I saw they won.
98-yard drive to end the game with 10 seconds left in a touchdown. A guy like Baker Mayfield that hasn't played in how long you should not. Every single member of that defense should be benched. I mean, that's an embarrassment. I'm not taking anything away from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not as good as he was projected to be, but he's not as bad as people make him out to be. He's still a viable NFL quarterback. Maybe not a starter, but borderline starter / good number 2. But it's not taking anything away from him. That's just an embarrassment for the Raiders, though. A guy that didn't even have a day of practice with the team.
Well, not only is that an embarrassment, Phil, but to me, I think the biggest travesty this year for the Raiders is that you see a guy like Davante Adams basically take over games, and you don't throw a pass to him in the second half. I mean, he had 3 catches for 70-some yards in the first half. That's what he ended with. Like, how do you not get Davante Adams the ball? Like, that, to me, he should be fired for that. And this is now, I think, 3 games where Davante Adams is basically like, non-existent, but it's not his fault. He gets open every play. If you watch the film, he's open almost every single play.
I saw a post the other day about the records of all the different coaches that were hired the same year that Nick Sirianni. And all the other names. Like, so you think about Arthur Smith, Brian Daboll wasn't hired that year, but he was with the Giants now. Josh McDaniels, we won. All the different names that everybody wanted. We lucked out with Nick Sirianni, obviously, but we lucked out. Not go like I'm pretty sure Josh McDaniels was the last interview we did before we hired Nick Sirianni.
He was.
And I'm pretty sure everybody thought he was going to be the coach of the Eagles.
Most people wanted him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say I wanted him
a lot,
but he was on my top.
But a lot of people wanted him.
Like, I wanted Brian Daboll. That was my number one guy. My number two guy was Eric Bieniemy, who still doesn't have a head coaching job. And then I wanted Josh McDaniels. I didn't even know who Nick Sirianni was, honestly.
I didn't either.
Nobody.
When they signed him, it was just like
I didn't want Arthur Smith and some of these other names that went that year. What was it? Brian Staley or what's Staley, the Chargers coach? He's not doing anything, and he's got a legit quarterback there in San Diego, or LA. How we dodged all those bullets and ended up with Nick Sirianni. That's a tip of the cap to Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. Because if you think about it, outside of Chip Kelly, and honestly, Chip Kelly for 2 of those years wasn't that bad. Chip Kelly was great until he got GM privileges and stuff like that. The Jeffrey Lurie regime has hired Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches of all time, Doug Peterson, who brought us our first Super Bowl, Chip Kelly, who won 10 games in his first year here and took us to the playoffs, and now Nick Sirianni, who's turned around a franchise like that. It's insane.
We have 2 top 3 owners in their respective sports. John Middleton in baseball and Jeff Lurie in football. Like, our basketball team ownership, that's another story. And the Flyers, we know that ownership is just absolute disgrace. But we have 2 of the best owners in sports right here in Philly.
It's insane. It really is. We dodged a bullet there. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap up another week of Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Another great week. Thank you all for tuning in this week. Make sure, again, like I said, always, even if you're watching on replay, you like and subscribe to the channel. Drop your comments on replay. I will go back and check them and respond when I have the time. Again, we both got the Eagles winning. Jason's got them winning 35-10. I got a 27-17 score. We're going to be talking Monday about our 12-1 Eagles. There's no doubt about it. So we're going to end it right there. Again, special thank you to Bryan Cameron from Philadelphia Sports Network for joining us for the first half of the show. Make sure you shoot him a follow as well. Jason, and as always, go Birds.
Go Birds.
And Philadelphia has it.